All right. So what we will begin with, I would like to share certain common love quotes that are very common. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of you may have heard of the person who may have talked about it. And love is highly romanticized. People speak about it. We have lots of love songs, poems, essays from, from the beginning of time, I suppose people talk about it. And on your screen, there are certain famous people who have spoken about what love is. Right? For some, they've said better to have loved than lost than to never have loved. St. Augustine speaks about it. A lot of times, we may not know the person who has spoken to us or brought up that quote, but we use it very commonly. Like Mahatma Gandhi spoke about where there is love, there is life. Then the need for love lies at the very foundation of human existence by Dalai Lama. Then, of course, the last bit by Oprah Winfrey, the chance to love and be loved exists no matter where you are. The reason I'm also saying this is, I would like to know, what do you all think? What do you all feel about love? What do you all think? Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this? And when we talk about love, what pops into your mind? Is there a quote? Is there an image? Is there a person that you can think of? Just want you all to take a few minutes. If you're comfortable sharing it with me, you can write to me on chat. Individually, like I said, if you don't want everybody in the forum to know. But it makes me wonder what you all think. And for me, when I was beginning to put this presentation together, I thought, since we are speaking about love and we are a country which is beautifully diverse, beautifully diverse, with different kinds of languages, different kinds of backgrounds, different kinds of religions. And I was thinking that, let me mention famous love songs. Let me talk about famous love songs in the country. I started doing it, seemed like an extremely nice way to do my research and put things together. But what I realized is we have so many languages. And as and when I started to put famous songs together, I realized that I will not have any time to cover all the languages in our country. And I'll run out of slides if that's what I continue to share. So I decided to keep this aside. So for me, when I thought about love, my instant thought was, my God, there are so many love songs. And every language definitely have at least one, if not many, famous love songs. So that was what occurred to me. So I was also wondering, what did you all feel when we first talked about it, or when you saw the poster that was sent to you, or when you started the session and you saw the picture perhaps that I was sharing in my first slide. I have a few people who've written in to me. One person says for them, love means never having to say you're sorry. That's something that hurt. And then, of course, All You Need Is Love, which is a very famous song. And another person has said, quality time is love. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. But I do also wish to bring to, talk about a bit more is how our perception of love is different for different people. And we take it from different kinds of people we know, maybe our environments, from movies, from like quotes like this, from personal experience, but each of that varies, right? And even if you did not want to share it with me today, what I would want to tell you all is, think about it for yourself, right? Just think about it. Think about it for yourself and look at, what does love mean to you? On that same note, what I would like to also talk about is, I'm sorry, is somebody speaking? Okay. What I do also want to request is, you can feel free to unmute, and if you want to ask or say something, but I would request, if you're not aware, do check your mic, because if it's unmuted, it can get sort of distracting in case, I hear you speak, or you're on another call, or you're speaking to somebody else, right? Thank you. Now, what I would like you all to think about a bit more, right, is I would like you to just look at certain aspects. Very, very few. I won't go into too many aspects of it, but I want you to think about for yourself, when we move to the next slide, what do you think is a good relationship? What do you think? You can write to me on chat. You can unmute and say, what is your idea? It can be words, it can be sentences. Words might help. If you could describe a good relationship, it can be any sort of a romantic relationship, because that's what we're focusing on now. And when I say romantic relationship, I mean anybody you're in a relationship with, or you're married to, or you're dating, or you're seeing someone. What I would want you to do is just think about it for yourself. Few seconds. What would it is? Any word that comes to your mind, a bunch of words that perhaps comes to your mind. What is your idea of a good relationship? Also, there are no right and wrong answers here, right? It's what is your understanding? There are a lot of people sending in honesty, understanding, communication, care, and love, right? Another person has said good relationship is listening, paying attention, being involved in others' interests, supporting them, uplifting their spirit, being on the same page. Great. That's wonderful. Let me share a poll now that a lot of you have been thinking about it. I want to know, what do you feel is a good relationship? From some of the points mentioned here. It's great that a lot of you have shared what you feel like is a good relationship as well. But just to assist you with the thought process, just for you to look at it, I'd want you to just give the, look at the poll on your screen and choose one answer. I'll tell you why I asked you to choose one answer. Of course, a relationship is more than one. But once you answer the poll, I will tell you a bit more about my reasons for why I've given you only a single choice. Okay, I have about not even half, 50% is answered. Okay, now 50%. I would request the rest of you to also answer the poll, just because it will give me an idea of where we all stand as people. And then maybe I'll also share my answer once you all have answered. The names won't be coming in. Even if I am sharing the polls, it'll just be the percentages. No one will have access to who answered what. Okay, I have about 60% of the people who answered. I request the rest of you also to answer. Like I said, it is anonymous. I will not know your names. And I'll just wait for a couple more seconds. While I'm doing that, I do appreciate the people who have answered in the chat. I think it's wonderful that we are able to think about it. And why are we talking about a good relationship? Because there are times that in our day-to-day lives, it's hard for us to take a step back and look at, what would we think would be parts of a good relationship? How do we feel like it needs to be, or we would like it to be? Sometimes the reality may be different, but I think it'll help all of us to just look back at our relationship, if you're in one, and reflect on what you feel, or look at going further how you would want it to be. Right. The rest of the people, in the interest of time, I think I will end the poll and share results. Very interesting. I hope you can all see the results that's come in. 41% of the people have said trust. The next highest percent is love, which is 16%, which of course is something we'll be talking more about. Interestingly, authenticity is 9%, honesty and kindness, like you can see, 6%, and then arguments is 3%. Very interesting, if I must say. Yes, trust is something that is very, very essential. But what I would also look at is all of these, by research and by studies, they've seen how all of these aspects have their role in a healthy relationship, in what we would or what some people would term as a good relationship. And it's very, very interesting. The reason I put in arguments there, which is 3%, which is very, very understandable as well, is because in general, if people are fighting and people are arguing, it's considered as negative. People think if you are in a good relationship, then you should not be fighting, you should not be arguing. How is that a good relationship? I will look at that further. But thank you all for taking part. For the people who did not fully take part in the poll, I request you to take part in the next one as well. I will be having a couple more polls. The reason is not so much for me, but the reason it'll help you to just reflect back for yourself and think about it. It takes a few seconds to do that. And the more we interact, the more interesting this session would be as well. And you may get some questions, you may get some amount of clarity for yourself, but if there's something while you're doing the polls or looking at it that you want to share, this is the time for you to even interact with me and ask me certain questions that you would need or you would want answers to. So, it will help all of us. Now let's look at some aspects that we also spoke about. Let us look at trust. Maximum amount here spoke about trust. Yes, trust is extremely important. It's the foundations of a relationship, and it needs to be developed. Once we develop trust with someone, there is reliability, and there are times when people might feel tempted in any sort of a relationship, any sort of a way. But then you hold on to the trust that's there and you continue to be there in your relationships and continue to be faithful to your partner. And you hold on to those needs and feelings of the other person instead of giving in to temptation. So trust is something that is a foundation and it helps during the difficult times. And like everybody said, it's very common now with the advent of technology, with the ability to be able to travel. The sheer amount of people that we can come in contact with and do come in contact with is a lot more. So the opportunity to also interact with somebody or feel attracted to another individual is also automatically higher. So a lot of times trust can be tested in that way, especially in these current times, given that you don't even have to travel to meet people. You don't even have to step out of the home to encounter somebody that you connect with, perhaps. You can do that all by just having a cell phone with you. So in that context, also it makes a difference when there is a trust in the relationship between both the partners. You're able to be a reliable partner. The other person will have faith in you, and that builds your relationship at any stage. And of course, there's honesty to be spoken. It's important as a trait in any relationship, but in a romantic relationship, being honest with your partner is important, and it helps build trust, and it helps develop a healthy relationship. At the same time, honesty should be accompanied by a level of compassion and tenderness. Using honesty to say, this is how I am, you know how I am, I cannot just be polite to you. I cannot just not tell you when I'm annoyed. I use swear words, you know how I am, and this is the kind of person I am, isn't being honest. It's being cruel. Instead of using honesty to build a relationship, sometimes we might justify what we say and do as a sign of I'm being honest in the relationship, right? And we all know, if you all think back, if you've ever done this, or if somebody else has said what you've said has hurt me and you feel like I'm just being honest, how can he or she or they have a problem? It'll help you realize that honesty is just used as an excuse to be cruel or nasty or say something when you're angry with the individual. That's not the sign of a healthy relationship. It needs to be used as something that will help you build a relationship, not create more of a barrier between the two people involved. I think someone unmuted. Does someone want to share something, ask me something? All right. And of course, there is authenticity. Authenticity, like all of you know, is just being real. It's similar to honesty, but it's about not being so judgmental, not being so uptight, not being defensive and immediately saying it's your fault, it's not my fault. At the same time, part of our authenticity also is being able to value a partner's individuality, uniqueness. For example, I may not feel like going outside and socializing with so many people. I might be somebody whose idea of relaxing is staying at home, listening to music, reading a book, perhaps. But perhaps my partner feels good when they go out and socialize, right? So for me, if I'm being authentic in the relationship with the person, I value the fact that they are individually their own person. Part of them feeling good is going out and socializing. And the fact that they may be unique. They may have traits that people might find quirky, might find annoying. You might find it annoying as well. But at the same time, you realize that they have their unique traits. A lot of time being unique may be different from you. And just being able to appreciate that is also being authentically appreciating and looking at what your partner brings to the relationship, even if they are different from who you are. And of course, being generous. Generous in terms of time, in terms of compliments, in terms of just being available, in terms of just being able to provide the kind of support if they're going through a difficult time, stepping in if they need help with something, volunteering to do certain things, looking at changing aspects. Generosity also can be looking at changing an aspect about myself that perhaps I wouldn't want to change for anybody else. For example, perhaps going back to the same example I was talking about, given a choice, I would want to just stay home, read a book, and listen to music. But then I would want to be able to spend time with my partner, and if that's something they would feel good about sharing an event with me, going out for a music concert perhaps, then I would be happy to give that time to them, go and still have a good time and still enjoy my time with this person. So generosity comes in different factors and at different levels. And of course, kindness goes hand in hand, right? Being kind, being able to look at times when they would need a bit more kindness, bit more sensitivity perhaps, and just like another an individual shared here with me, being able to listen. Sometimes being kind is also listening to your partner, giving them the space, being kind enough to realize, okay, maybe he or she or they need some time, so let me be kind enough to give them that space, and I'll definitely come back to revisit this particular aspect or a thought or an argument or something that you're unhappy about. Arguments. 3% people here said arguments are part of a good relationship. What I do want to say is arguments surprisingly help to strengthen the bond between couples. As much as a lot of people may not agree with it, a lot of research has proven being able to argue. First, the fact that you're able to disagree with the partner shows you have that level of comfort, and that level of understanding. And you feel there's a bit of honesty as well, that you're able to say you disagree with something, or you find something irritating, or you find something annoying about the partner, or what they've said, or what they're not doing. A lot of times it's how we argue that is the crux of a good relationship, not just having arguments. I will look at a little bit more in detail with regard to that and how to make it a bit more healthy in terms of arguing with a partner. But a lot of times, especially in long-term relationships, a lot of research has also shown how it brings couples together. Maybe not at the time they're arguing, but definitely in the long run with regard to the level and the quality of their relationships. And it's also about having constructive discussions. And of course, there's love. I'll also be looking at the different aspects of love ahead. And happiness. Happiness, joy, the ability to be able to just have someone to share your life with, the kind of joy they bring, the kind of excitement they bring, the kind of companionship they bring. All of that brings a lot of joy for us. All of that brings a lot of it brings that sense of satisfaction, contentment. A lot of people get happiness because they are able to share their life with somebody who makes their life more meaningful. All of this brings us happiness. Happiness to share your day with somebody, happiness to share interests with somebody, happiness to just be quietly sitting maybe and enjoying a moment of silence. There are different ways in which people experience happiness or joy differently in relationships. Anything anybody wants to share? Anybody has any thoughts? Is there anything that you feel like would also be part of a good relationship that perhaps I didn't mention here? Are there any questions at this time? All right. Okay. Now we looked at the aspects of a good relationship. Now I'd like to focus a little bit more on the aspect of love and what is important for love. And before I do that, I want to hear what you all think is important for love. There are 3 pointers that I feel like includes what love would mean. And I would want to know what you all think. So if you can look at your screen, I have a poll that I'm sharing which speaks about 3 kinds. And what do you all think? Like I said before, the results are anonymous. And I don't even have 50% answering my polls now. I didn't realize that my talk is that boring. I mean, I thought the rain gods are going to be causing me a bit of stress, but well, I hope I'm not mistaken. A couple more people. I'll just wait for a few more seconds. I've only had about 68% answer. The rest of you, if you can take a few minutes and answer the question, it'll give me a better idea of what you think love is for you among the options I've mentioned. At the same time, for the ones who have answered, if there's anything particularly that is, would describe love for you, and I have not mentioned it here, it will help if you could always write it to me on chat, or you could always unmute and tell me. And, it would be great. Maybe somebody else in the audience would identify with it. I can definitely, incorporate it going ahead. All right, in the interest of time, I will end the poll and let me share the results. Extremely interesting, I must say. 71% of the people here say love is commitment. And then 25% say it's intimacy. And then there's a 4% that says it's passion. And the reason this poll is very interesting is, and also looking at, I'm wondering if age groups are different, and based on certain age groups, people have chosen particular answers, or it's across different age groups. It's extremely interesting, and let me talk a little bit. Let's look at it a bit more, in detail, or rather, let's talk a bit more of the three components of love. Now, a very famous doctor called Dr. Sternberg came up with this concept of love, which is a triangle. So he spoke about three components, like you can see on your screen. There is intimacy, there is passion, and commitment. So he spoke about how these are and these are particularly with reference to people in a romantic or a sexual relationship. At the same time, it also applies to other kinds of relationships that we may have. Some components of it: parent and child, siblings, friendships, relatives, for example. It can be cousin, it can be uncle, aunt, it can be friendships, right? But particularly, all these components are seen as something that are the basic foundations of love. Now, this does not discount what you all individually feel what love would mean for you. I'm clearly speaking about a particular kind of research, and I'm talking about in terms of the number of studies that have been conducted. Your ideas of love might fit into any of these, or as and when we go further, there may be aspects that you see that you might feel like would be relevant for you. Let's look at intimacy. Now, intimacy basically involves being able to connect with somebody, feeling close to somebody, feeling that bond. You would want to be intimate, you would want to be closer, you want to be interested, you want to get to know the person a bit more, you would be fascinated with them, you would feel very strongly towards them. You might visualize a future with them, or you may not, but that instant kind of connection will also be there. The wanting to give time, wanting to give space, wanting to have that additional interest to get to know the other individual comes under intimacy. And of course, there's passion. Passion, of course, involves desire. There's a lot of physical attraction. There is romance. There may also be physical relationship with the person as well, which you might give in because of the physical attraction that you have for the person. And of course, there's decision or commitment. Now, decision making or commitment involves where you decide to remain with an individual and move towards certain common aspects that you're looking at. For example, we want to maybe get into a serious relationship, and both the people involved decide to do that. That may be one goal. And then after a point, you might start discussing about, let's consider perhaps moving in together. That can be another shared goal. And then eventually you might look at, okay, let us just remain this way and things are going well, which can also be a shared goal. You might decide not to get married, or you might decide together and make a commitment and say, okay, let's legally get married. Let's have a ceremony. Let's maybe get registered. And that is also comes under commitment, where together you both decide to look at where you want this relationship to be, how you want this to be, and make a decision irrespective of emotionally the ups and downs that you may be experiencing together or individually, to stay together and look at ways to maintain that relationship. And a lot of times, a lot of people, like a lot of you shared here, if you could see the poll, the highest percent was commitment. The highest percent was decision making and commitment to want to stay together, to want to be together. And plenty of times, a lot of couples do talk about how, commitment is what is getting them through. They made the commitment, and both the people are working towards making it work, putting in the effort every day to make it work. And that's a huge part of a lot of relationships as well, along with intimacy and passion as well. Let us look at different types of love. Now, we looked at the basic components of what Dr. Sternberg spoke about, the 3 components. Now we're looking at applying the same things. Now the same kind of aspects talk about how different forms of love have a combination of any of these 3, right? So let's look at the different kinds of it. One, of course, there's non-love. Now, non-love basically means there is no intimacy. You feel extremely passionately connected to the person, but it may not have led to it yet, or it may have tapered away before you even interact with the person. And then there's no decision making or commitment. Where do you think we experience non-love, where there's no intimacy, no passion, no decision making, no commitment? What do you think are some of the kind of relationships that we have that would come under this? What do you all think? All right. It may sound extremely strange because none of the 3 components seem to be there, but these exist in what are known as the casual interactions in our everyday life. And the majority of us encounter this when we're traveling to work, when we're meeting acquaintances, when you're just meeting people in the on the streets, perhaps. We are going into a big building for work, and the people we pass by. There may be somebody in the store that we encounter. There may be somebody who helps us. In the middle of the street, maybe I drop my suitcase, or they help us with it, or maybe somebody that we ask for assistance. We might call customer service for something. We may be at the grocery store, and the person who's billing at the billing counter. All of these come under this. These are interactions. We are definitely interacting with them, but there is none of these components. These are all casual interactions in life. Now let's look at friendship. Now, when we talk about friendship, friendship is a form of relationship where there's only intimacy, where we feel very strongly, we are fond of the person, we are affectionate towards the person, but there are no feelings of passion or commitment in any sort of a romantic sense. Now, it's important to remember that there are a lot of romantic relationships where the foundations may be rooted in friendship, right? But we're talking purely about platonic relationships. We are talking about the stage where there is no attraction, and there is no kind of decision or commitment to want to spend your life with this person, and live with them as a romantic partner. That's what friendship talks about. And there will be a lot of there are. I would want you to think about friends that whether you met them at work, whether they are childhood friends, whether they are people in personal interactions, whether someone's introduced to them. And I would want you to think about them. You feel warmly towards them. You feel happy towards them. You might also feel annoyed that perhaps they haven't met you in a lot of time, right? And these are particular kinds of friendships that can exist on different levels. You may be really close friends. I have a friend who says, I have 3 besties. I have another friend who does not believe in the concept of besties. She says, there are close friends for me, and then there are friends and acquaintances. There is this other person who has 4 levels of it, who says, no, there are besties, there are close friends, there are friends, and there are acquaintances. So there are different levels of friendship, but basically friendship involves, there is no passion or decision making, and that's where there's a difference. Let's look at infatuation. Now, infatuation is completely only passion, feelings of lust, physical passion. There is no liking. The reason why I'm saying that it may not be liking is we haven't had enough time to get to know the person. Right? It may be the way they look. It may have been, it may be the way they dress. There may not be that sense of intimacy. And of course, there's no commitment. And that's because there's not been enough time. And a lot of times love at first sight is a very common aspect that we talk about. From infatuation, it might move to other stages where you feel like you are developing an intimacy. But infatuation is that stage where there's completely only passion. And physically, there's manifestation as well. There's increased heartbeat. Sometimes people feel nervous around the person. Palms may start sweating. There is that bit of excitement. Sometimes people stumble. They might say the wrong thing. They may not be able to talk. They may not know what to say, what not to say. Also, commonly in our movies, they show how this part a lot of times is focused on and exaggerated, how the hero is practicing with a friend and then wants to go and tell the girl that he loves her, or the heroine wants to tell the hero any, either of those. So infatuation is basically, that's what it looks at. And the kind of love, it develops, like I said, very quickly. There is no time for anything else to form or plan or think about. Then, of course, there is what is known as empty love, that involves only decision making or commitment. Now, the words on their own are not a sign of judgment. These are just words used to describe the phases. So just because this says empty love, it does not mean that there is no love in the relationship, right? But this is based on decision and commitment. The intimacy and passion may not be present, and a lot of times it may have tapered. For example, long-term couples, been there for a long time, known each other very well. So you're committed, you feel neutral about the relationship, things are going all right. And you may not feel as strongly, as passionately connected. A lot of times, this is sometimes seen as the final stage of a relationship, a long-term relationship. Interestingly, in countries like India, where the concept of arranged marriage is there, this stage, it starts with this stage. And then they found out it slowly moves into other stages. Slowly, there's infatuation that can develop in friendship along with decision making. So it's very, very interesting. While in the West, this usually occurs at the later stages. It occurs in India as well. After a period of time, long-term stable couples do get into the stage where commitment becomes the highest focus and becomes a part of life. But also in India, because of arranged marriages, relationships begin with the idea of committing to spend your life with this person, and you've decided to get to marry them. You may not have really known them. There may be certain other people who families may have met, or other people may have told you a little bit about the person, and you go into the relationship with commitment. Let's look at the other forms of love. And of course, there's romantic love that everybody talks about, that everybody, very famously knows about, which talks about both intimacy and passion. There's a lot of physical passion as well. There's emotional connection, and you want to have deep conversations. People want to know the other person. You want to know so many details about the person. What do they like? What do they not like? What is their favorite color? When, are they an early riser? What are their interests? Who's their famous, do they like to read? Who's their famous author? Who's their famous favorite movie star rather? What kind of music do they like? How do they feel about the kind of work they do? What are their goals in life? All of that, any and every detail you would want to know about another person. And that's what romantic love talks about. And there is, of course, there's a lot of heated connection in terms of you feel extremely passionate. There's a lot of affection that you feel. And you may be at a point where you're looking at long-term commitment, perhaps, or you may not, or you may be undecided. But romantic love is a little bit more than the infatuation stage. Then, of course, there is the and a very, very common example that perhaps I can think of when it comes to romantic love is the story of Romeo and Juliet. Very clearly, they talk about the intimacy and passion over there, and very clearly their story talks about that. So that is a very textbook kind of an example, perhaps, or a stereotype that I can give when we speak about romantic love. And a lot of poems that are written, and a lot of Hindi movies that also talk about how the two people meet and they're extremely attracted and they're so interested and they want to spend their lives together and they fight against the rest of the world to maintain their love. There may not be a level of commitment. They may not even have thought about it. And of course, companionate love. Now, what would companionate love mean? Basically, there is intimacy and there's decision making. Now, this a lot of times can occur in long-term committed friendships, and this kind of also sometimes frequently occurs in marriage. Where, after a point, the kind of like physical attraction has died down, that you've reached a point where like that is not the focus, and that's not something that you really feel like it's the most important thing for you to sustain your relationship. And because of a large component of marriages that have intimacy and decision making, they can often become, people look at it as the spark is not there, but that's all right. The initial spark or the attraction of passion can get lost over time, and it can become a very common way of being all right with it, all right with that concept. And of course, this fatuous love, which talks about passion and decision, or passion and commitment, where it is intimacy is definitely absent in this aspect, and it happens very quickly. It can be kind of like a whirlwind romance sort of a thing, where you meet the person, you feel extremely connected, and then you know this is the person you want to spend the whole rest of your life with, and then perhaps get engaged in a couple of weeks, and then decide, okay, in a month we need to get married. This is it. I don't want to meet anybody else. And then they get married, right? So, or they move in and they immediately like quickly decide and make a decision and go ahead. Now, the reason though they make a decision to get married, the reason why intimacy is not here is intimacy takes time to be developed, takes time, takes effort, and without that, that's where it comes under this category. Intimacy does not automatically, lack of intimacy automatically doesn't mean that the people don't decide to spend their lives together. And this is also quite common sometimes. This is bound to happen. A lot of times also, sometimes people feel the pressure to get married as well, if you've reached a certain age perhaps. And then they meet somebody and they feel extremely attracted, but they feel like their own personal deadlines may be running out, and they feel attracted. They feel like this is the person I want to get married to, and it can happen at a later stage in life as well. At an earlier stage in life, it can happen as well, where you're young, you're youthful, you've read these books and movies, and you have this idea about your perfect partner, and you meet someone and they seem to fit all your criteria. You don't want to wait because you feel like you're wasting time, and you go ahead with it. Or you may have, you may be at a stage where a particular relationship may not have worked, and then you decide that you're looking for another person, and you're putting yourself out there, and you meet someone and you feel, wow, this person is amazing. This person is amazing. I feel extremely attracted to this person, and I know it's going to work. And you decide, no point in waiting, let me get married. Right? So it can occur at different times in life, but this is one form where the intimacy is. And of course, there's consummate love, where there's intimacy, there's passion, there's decision making and commitment. A lot of times, this is the ideal in which people feel like this is the kind of love I want to have. This is the kind of love that people do claim to have. This is the kind of love that a lot of people do have. This is the kind of love that a lot of people feel like they would want to have and they would want to be with. And people strive towards it. In a healthy long-term relationship, there are aspects of this that can come in and out. But like I said, passion may be changed into other things. It may not be that kind of intense spark passion that you saw at first, but there'll be that attraction. You see your partner across the room and you exchange glances and you can just connect. It can be an inside joke that you're sharing, but only you and your partner connect. That's passion as well, along with sharing a sense of humor, along with being able to look at that individual. I know a couple where the partner told me that she always feels safe when she goes to any kind of a big or small social gathering, because she knows her partner is there, and anytime she looks around, he's there. They're talking to other people, but he knows she gets nervous in a social setting and with too many people. So as much as he's talking to other people, he ensures he's around her, so that in case she happens to look, she doesn't have to search for him too far. And that's how she feels connected to him. And that is a form of consummate love, because they've been married for a long time and there is intimacy, they're committed to each other, but there is that sense of passion. The safety is there, but she says she feels good when she just sees him and finds him, and she remembers for a second initially when they met how she felt about it. This can vary and taper and move up and down over time, but a lot of people ideally strive in general for this kind of love. Now that I've spoken so much, I also want to talk about, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I'd stop sharing the poll. So sorry about that. Let me share my next poll. I would like to know, what do you identify? What kind of love do you identify with in your life? Or the kind of loves? At the same time, what I also do want to say is sometimes consummate love may also be in terms of a parent feeling a certain way towards a child, that kind of unconditional love and acceptance that we feel. There is that as well. Getting some extremely interesting answers. And you can identify with, if you can identify with more than one, that's perfectly all right. There are multiple kinds of love that perhaps you can identify in your life. You can choose it. All right, just waiting for a few more. Oh no, there are lesser people than 50% answering my polls. Okay. If you're all feeling bored with my poll questions, please tell me. I thought this would, this is also a form of you all reflecting on your own relationships. And it's not just me constantly talking about, just giving you information and just talking about it. The effectiveness of the information will work only if everybody is able to, think about it for yourself. Thank you, someone. Someone very kindly has written to me that the polls are interesting. Thank you. Okay, I'm still waiting for a couple more people to answer. Meanwhile, if there are any kind of questions, any kind of clarifications that any of you wanted, is there anything that you felt like you were not clear about, or you'd want a bit more examples perhaps, then you can definitely write to me and I'll definitely address it towards the end. Okay, in the interest of time, I'll end the poll and share the results. Right, if you can see 58% of the people have spoken about companionate love. They're able to identify that. 53% is friendship. 37% is romantic. Infatuation is 21. 16 is both empty love and non-love. Fatuous is 5%. And it's true. It's true. There are aspects of it that are in all parts of our lives. The percentages may be more or less. And I hope this helped you identify where, perhaps your own relationship as well, or maybe people that you know and around you also, if you were able to identify, or also look at the kind of love perhaps you'd want to have in the future. Thank you for sharing. Let me quickly look at. One moment, please. Right. Okay. Now, the reason why we're even speaking about the different kinds of love is a lot of them exist in different forms of relationships, but also let's look at quickly the stages of a relationship. This is also important because this also look at what kind of strategies can we apply in terms of our own relationships and in terms of what would work when we do get into a relationship. There are basically four stages of a relationship. We have the honeymoon stage, early attachment, crisis stage, and of course the deep attachment. Now, honeymoon stage, of course, like the word definitely describes, it's the initial phase where everything is exciting about the person. You don't hate anything about it. You overlook everything and you feel like you're on cloud nine. You're thinking about the person 24/7. You think of them all the time. You wonder what they're doing. Anything and everything they say and do is amazing. You feel like they can do nothing wrong. They can say nothing wrong. We forgive everything. We're so blind to the faults, we don't even look at them. I feel like it doesn't matter. If they're living there, if they're untidy, we feel like, wow, so nice. This person doesn't care about cleanliness, is so confident in who they are that they don't care that their room is untidy. Right? All the good things outweigh the negative. And sometimes we don't look at them. And it's very interesting where studies have conducted where they felt the high that people get in the stage. There's a biochemical reaction that happens where dopamine is produced a lot more, because of which you feel good, you feel excited, as a result of which you naturally feel like this is a stage you would want to be more and extend it because you feel good, right? And there's of course no negative judgment at this phase. You don't look at the person and think anything ill about them. Soon after that, it moves into what is known as the early attachment phase, where that high and excitement isn't there anymore, where you feel a bit more, the brain starts also, in the brain, the kind of aspects you start focusing upon are looking at, getting to know the person. You still love them, you still feel extremely affectionate, but you're able to do your work, you're able to sleep, you're able to, switch off your phone perhaps and get some bit of rest before getting in touch. You're not constantly looking at your phone and checking the message. You're able to do other things in life, basically. You're able to focus on other aspects. And also, this is the point where all the memories get accumulated, good, bad, ugly, difficult, all the different kinds of like perhaps disagreements, perhaps that you would have had, that also become part of this. But you look back at it fondly, and you feel connected. You feel a lot more connected than you did at the first stage. It's a bit more stable. Of course, you have the crisis stage that talks about where, it's called the crisis stage, where there's a lot of like upheaval that happens. This is the stage where you in marriages it's called as the 7 or the 5 year age, but in relationships as well, you sort of begin to drift apart. You sort of start questioning. You keep thinking, oh my god, we're fighting all the time. We're arguing all the time. This isn't the person that I thought were. He is so different, she is so different, they are so different. This is not the kind of person that I like. Is this the person that I fell in love with? Why are they so different? Why aren't we agreeing about everything? Are we this different? I didn't think this would be an issue. And then, of course, the person being untidy at this stage is not endearing or romantic or cute or fun anymore. It begins to irritate and upset you and feel like, how can this person be so untidy all the time? I just do not know if this is going to break our relationship. It's also a point where a lot of relationships break up. It's also a point where a lot of times relationships end as well. And of course, you have the deep attachment phase, which is the next phase, where you get through the crisis phase, and that's the phase where you're calmer, you know each other really, really well, deeper. You're aware of the kind of issues that you may have. You've dealt with a lot of make or break kind of situations. You've pulled through it, and then you also are able to discuss, okay, if this happens, how do we handle it? Okay, I understand, this is very, he or she or they are sensitive about. So then perhaps we'll address it at a different point. But it's almost like you make a plan and you're able to discuss certain points that are a problem in the relationship, and you feel very secure. It's also about looking at long term, and you continue to sustain through the storm, and you're able to develop it to a deeper level. For a lot of people, this continues to sustain and lasts a lifetime as well. Right. Now, let me quickly also look at next the crisis stage. Why are we looking at the crisis stage? Because this is where a lot of upheaval happens in relationships. This is where we feel like people struggle the most. People become doubtful and look at, they relook at the relationships. And we also have people who come into counseling during these points because they're questioning the relationship. And some of the stages are, of course, disillusionment. The dreams and the ideas you had about your partner, but the relationship is not there anymore. You're not able to communicate with another. If you're communicating, you're constantly either fighting or you're just quietly not talking about things that have been brushed under the carpet come to the surface. You're all the time either fighting and arguing. You're drifting about, in the sense sometimes you don't want to spend all your time together, or even that little bit of time you start focusing on work to avoid meeting your partner. You either spend time with more family or friends. You get that sense of emotional contentment and a bit of lightness when you meet other people. That's where the stage comes in as well. And of course, the doubt. Is this the right person for me? Am I the right person for him, or who are they? You can feel sad, you can feel mad, you can get irritated, you can get annoyed, and a lot of focus on the negatives. We tend to focus on the negatives and only look at, this is not okay, that is not okay, things are not going the way I want. I imagined it to be a certain way. I just don't understand where we are heading. It can be scary, it can be fearful, it can be very, very hard to consider and look at as well. So what can we do? What are some of the things that we can do? Let's look at together. And when I say what can we do, or I do, I put we in the brackets. And I mean, when you're in a relationship, what can you do individually, but what can you and your partner do together? First of all, communicate. It's very easy for me to say to communicate, but it's very hard to do, and I understand. But how do we communicate? And then it is also how we do the process. One is being fully present. Remain there at that time. Give attention to your spouse or to your partner or to your girlfriend or boyfriend, or however you identify them. Because all the time we have enough of distractions. We have our phones, we have work, we have other people we talk to, we have the TV. We might just want to sit on the couch and not talk about anything. But it's important to pay attention. Take the time away, keep your phone out, be present there at that time. There may be times that other events might require attention, like an event perhaps, or a deadline at work. Those times it's fine, you're giving them attention, but it's important to practically be there and practice being there for each other every day or every time you meet. Then, of course, being true to yourself. It's very important for us to be honest for ourselves as well, isn't it? If I'm exhausted, And I've had like 2-3 crazy weeks where I've stayed up, and then my partner wants to meet and then talk about, oh, I'm so upset and things are not going okay and I'm exhausted already. I need to be able to tell my partner, okay, listen, I'm extremely tired. We will talk about this, but I'm so exhausted over the weeks that I don't know if I'll be able to listen or even give you that much time. But let's talk about it. Maybe in 2 or 3 days, because I think I'll get a bit of rest. Just being able to communicate that will help, because my partner will also know that I'm not switching off, or I'm just not, or I don't care enough, but I'm just not able to do it. And it's important to do that. I need some space. I need to like just take some time out for myself. It's important that we say that, openly communicate. And when I say this, it's very important, because when things are going well, we all agree and we all are very happy and excited about it. But when we don't agree, there are certain topics, certain aspects that can increase the divide between partners. It's very, very important to have those discussions, because they will happen. We are all human beings. We all have our own dynamics and attitudes. We bring on a lot of who we are as individuals as well. And it's important to be able to have those discussions when it comes. Realize that now it may seem like that, but in the future there may be differences, and that's all right. Let's talk, let's discuss. Listening to your partner, like someone else said. Like I said, pay attention, don't interrupt them, don't be defensive, don't listen to immediately answer and say, no, you're wrong, or this is not okay. If your partner knows you're really listening to them without judgment, at that point, just being there makes a bit of a difference. Use sentences like I statements. I feel this is what you think. Is this what it is? Clarify if you wish to, right? Or if you're able to pick up that they're getting annoyed by something, you can say, I'm sorry, I don't know, is this irritating you? I don't mean to irritate you. Clarification really makes a difference. It also tells your partner you're listening to them. And if you're not able to understand, or you're misinterpreting it, you're asking them, you're not just jumping to conclusions. And having realistic expectations. When we first met, you did this, this, this. When we first met, you would bring me flowers. You would worry about the way you look. Look at the way you are. I can't even imagine this is the kind of person you are. In my mind, I thought we we're going to be traveling the world, but now it looks like you're not even interested to get out of the house. Right? It's important for us to have realistic expectations. It may not be how we imagined a relationship to be. No relationship would be that way. And it's not the be all and end all if a particular idea of you being in the best relationship possible doesn't happen. Right? Some things you will, some things you won't. It's also about being aware there are limitations for the relationship, for you as the partner, but also looking at both of us being able to have that open discussion and communication. Another way, like I said, is please suspend judgment. Don't judge them immediately. Very, very difficult. It can make things worse in an unhealthy relationship. It can make things worse, and it can lead to shouting matches. For that minute, suspend judgment. Sometimes we don't know. Maybe there are patterns they're repeating. Maybe they're saying the same thing, but maybe they're not. Right? Appreciate each other's perspective. They might notice something about you, or something that you said or you did, or they might give you a perspective that you never thought about. Keeping an open mind makes it easier. Just considering it in terms of, okay, perhaps it is this. At that point, even if you're not able to take some time out, think about it and come back, makes a difference. And also taking responsibility. If I made a mistake, own up and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said that. I'm sorry I did it. And ensuring I don't repeat it, or ensure that I inform them if I'm having a bad day, so that it doesn't lead to For example, I have a relative who always tells his wife that, okay, I've had a really long day. I might get irritable and annoyed. So as soon as he comes home, he informs his wife. So then he says, I don't want her to think I'm snapping at her. She might be talking about something else and it may not be about that. But the fact that he already tells her helps her as soon as he comes home, so that she can keep things aside if she wants to talk about something, or she realizes that he might need a bit more space that evening. And of course, self-care activities. You may not have had time to go meet a friend. You may not have had time to just go sit by yourself, and go to a cafe and maybe work. You may not have had time to meet your family. You may just want to go on a trek and meet new people, and you might just feel like it's something you've been wanting to do, and this might help you feel good and better and contribute better. Talk to your partner, let them know. Let's not make assumptions thinking that they will know everything. Fighting fair arguments. I spoke about arguments and how they're the most important, and they help us be who we are. It's important to also look at argue constructively. What does that mean? Making sure that you focus on what you're going to say, stay in the present, and look at not being sarcastic. Look at making sure that you're talking about what is affecting you. You're talking about, I'm upset by this, I understand. If you've discussed the same thing over and over and over again, take a break, cool down, decide to talk about it later. Specifically talk about how you feel. I was upset when you did not text me that you're going to be late because we were late for an event. I'm talking about a specific event I'm upset about. I'm not saying I was so upset you always do this, you never let me know. Right? It's important to do that. If I'm annoyed, make sure I don't project on my partner, then you're always so annoying. I'm annoyed, right? I'm irritated. So it's important for us to take a step back and do that and stay away from making insulting comments. Also saying things like never say never. You always do this. You never do this. You're constantly behaving this way. You're completely irrational. You're always being late. You never listen to me. You never pick up your clothes. Words like never always makes the other person feel defensive, and then you're not able to work through it. The other individual then starts giving examples about when they were not doing what you were accusing them of, and that leads to a heated argument. Pick your battles. Certain things may be important, certain things may be not, right? Look at what is really essential. 2 years ago, you did this, and then you're continuing to do that. And it's almost like, let me throw everything that I feel is wrong with you because I'm upset you did not pick up the towel from the floor. So I will go back and talk about every single time I've had an issue with you. When we do that, it can be overwhelming, annoying, and it doesn't work. It's not constructive. Instead, it helps to look at this point, this happened, I'm not happy with it. Focus on the present, look at the current problem. The minute we start accusing and talking about all the things that have happened in the past, I'm sure you're going to continue doing this. And saying things like that, it makes things worse. It makes things difficult. It does not resolve the problem. And also immediately finding fault, immediately looking at, no, you can't be complaining. No, you can't be doing this, right? Keep an open mind. Let them say what they need to say. It's very difficult to not be defensive when your partner is attacking you. But if you have a partner who's attacking you, wait for them, let them say what you need to, but you fight fair. You bring in aspects and say, it is upsetting me as well. Even I would want to complain, but I choose not to do. Let us look at what the issue is. Being sarcastic, being belittling the other person. Oh yes, of course. Of course you're tired. You've been sitting at home the whole day. You see, I traveled, I went to work, I met a couple of clients, I got drenched in the rain and come back. But of course you'll be tired because you're in the safety of the house. Right? Making statements like that, it doesn't really help at all and can make things worse. It can be extremely destructive for the relationship. And showing that sort of contempt can build, and name calling and swearing at the person, calling them names, saying inappropriate things like a useless, using the F word, using the B word. None of this really helps. It can be hard when you're constantly listening to negativity to be like, oh my God, this is too much. Why are you constantly complaining? Why are you saying this? Take a time out, right? Look at this is how it is, but don't make it worse. One person is getting irritated. You have to be the calmer person because it just escalates and gets worse. Becoming difficult, you need a timeout, take a timeout. Request and say, we will talk about this, but I need some time out. Both the people getting irritated and upset makes it difficult. Take time out, take a few deep breaths. If you want, go for a walk, go to another room. That itself helps you feel a little better. Gather your thoughts, come back. If you feel like today is too difficult to have the discussion, talk to your partner and say, let's discuss this over the weekend when we both have had some rest. Sometimes we're hungry, we get angry. Sometimes we're tired, we get irritated. There's no level of patience at those times. So it's important to look at that as well. Right. Let's also quickly look at how else can we connect with each other. Connect regularly, do fun things, go beyond the regular things. In a day, try and do something that you feel like your partner might like. Ask them how their day was. If they spoke about a particular kind of discussion they had to have, how was it? Lots of times people say they don't have time, but you can make the time. Connect in different ways. Connect, even looking at physically connecting with the person, and I just don't mean completely like having a completely physical relationship and taking time out. That's important as well, but holding hands, sitting beside each other, giving that kind of attention, keeping your phones away, maybe not before switching on your favorite show together or a movie or the news, taking 5 minutes out and just sitting and asking how the other person's day was, just looking at how things are, just generally checking in on them. That makes a real difference. Also, don't get lazy. It becomes very easy for us to take people for granted, isn't it? I know he's going to be with me. I know she will be there no matter what. We've been married for so many years. I can't do all that lovey-dovey things. You don't have to, right? But making an effort in the relationship is important. Making an effort to try and not get back into our bad habits. You know something annoys your partner, then try and make sure at least when you can, you make a good impression. Take time out, appreciate them. Tell them in your way. If your way of telling your partner you appreciate them is by cooking for them and making their favorite meal, do that. Your way of showing appreciation is, you know, your partner is exhausted, book a meal and take them out. Take them out for a surprise. Both of you have been extremely exhausted and tired. Go out for a weekend. Just take time away and spend time together. Even at home, you can make something special in your own way, the way that you would perhaps earlier connect with your partner, do that. And that, of course, goes into connecting with your everyday activities. Find new activities together. You may not have tried something new. It's exciting, it's fun, it helps you do something besides just talk about the relationship, just talk about the kids, just talk about perhaps having kids, just talking about the parents, talking about all the problems that we're perhaps encountering, talking about the day-to-day nitty-gritty things that you have to focus on. So it's just about finding easier, simpler, kinder ways in which you both can reconnect and make a difference. I hope this would be helpful for you all to maybe start looking at it. I quickly want to look at, out of any of these, which one do you think you would want to apply? Currently for your relationship. It can be anything. Anyone that you perhaps want. All right. Okay, let me end poll and share results. Right. 30%, not belittle or be sarcastic, it goes a long way. It goes a long way in ensuring that your relationship does not get worse and you continue to work on it. It shows the mutual respect you have for your partner. Would we say this to anybody else? Would we have a friend who would remain with us if we speak with this way? Would my boss at work appreciate it if I say this sentence or say it in this way? Would my parents be all right if they hear it? Would my sibling react and say something back if I speak this way? All of those are yes, then it's a good chance what we're telling our partners is not the best way of being respectful towards them. And of course, being fully present, having realistic expectations and arguing constructively. It's great to say 20% people have said that we can argue constructively, because it shows that, you know, arguments are part of parcel of our relationships, and it'll help us look at how we can argue in a more healthier manner to sustain our relationships. And to sum it all, I think this quote completely captures, the essence of relationships, where Robert Fulton talks about we're all a little weird. Life is a little weird. And when we find somebody whose weirdness is compatible with ours, we join up with them and fall into mutually satisfying weirdness. And then we call it love. And for each of us, that's our true love. So I think that completely summarizes what love and relationships mean to each one of us. I do apologize that I went a little beyond time, and I appreciate people who have stayed behind. And for the ones who want to talk about something specific with regard to a one-on-one with the counselors to help you with any kind of stage that you're going through, or you're looking to get into a relationship, or you are in the middle, or you're married and there are aspects that you want to particularly discuss, you can get in touch with us. This is our website, and you put in your official email ID, password, you can log in. You can either write to us through e-counseling, which is like an email, but you'll get the response within 48 hours, or you can fix an appointment and our team will fix it based on mutual availability. And you can have a one-on-one sessions. Thank you so much for joining me today. If there are any questions, any clarifications, I'm here. I'll be here for another 5 minutes.